Imagine being such a hardcore gamer that even expert mode feels like a boring tutorial. That's exactly where our protagonist stands. Seeking the ultimate thrill, he intentionally chooses hell mode for his new life in a fantasy world. But here's the catch. He doesn't start as a king or a hero. He spawns as a lowly serf, the bottom of the barrel, where leveling up takes an insane amount of grind and strategy. Can his gaming knowledge help him survive and eventually dominate a world designed to crush him? You definitely want to stick around until the very end to see how he breaks the game. But before we dive in, drop a comment down below. Where are you watching from today? And don't forget to smash that subscribe button for more anime recaps. Let's get started. This story begins as our protagonist's favorite game shuts down all of its servers. With the game gone, the protagonist realizes that he will have to touch grass if he doesn't find another game soon that needs 10 years to beat. So, he gets to searching for a hardcore game on the internet and comes across a game that claims to have no ending. With the protagonist's interest already at its peak, he starts feeling like he's up for a real challenge. So he chooses the hardest difficulty, Hell Mode, and also the hardest class summoner. But the second he hits play, the computer literally absorbs him inside the game world and basically reincarnates him as a newborn youngling. His father is happy to learn that he's gotten a son and names him Alan. Alan receives a lot of love from both his parents, so he feels glad even though he's born into a poor farmer's family. Over the next couple of months, he learns that he is currently in a rural village where most of the people cultivate land and pay taxes to their feudal lord. Alan's dad, Rudin, is a farmer, and his mother, Teresia, is a housewife. Since both Rudin and Teresa are in their early 20s, Alan believes that he will soon have younger siblings and can't wait to become part of a bigger family. One night, Alan recalls the basic isekai trope and uses the command stat window open. It works, but instead of a holographic system menu popping up, a grimoire appears, causing Alan to freak out. He quickly uses the command stat window close before his parents come in and pretends as if he's asleep. After making sure the parameters are clear, he summons the grimoire again and goes through its pages. The first page has Alan's stats written down, and as expected, all of them are at the lowest rank. The next page entails the details of Alan's summoning skill, and reading it, Alan learns that he apparently is already able to summon H-ranked insects and beasts. The book suddenly glows and flips itself to a new page. It's a message from Elmia, the creator of this world, who explains that the summoner class is still under beta testing, so he apologizes if Alan faces any difficulties because of his chosen class. Alan doesn't care about the message and proceeds to summon an insect. But no matter how many times he tries the incantation, the summoning spell just doesn't work. Alan thinks hard for a solution and realizes that perhaps he needs to create the relevant beast first. So he creates an H-ranked insect card. But as he's about to summon the beast, he notices that his mom, Teresia, is coming. So he pretends to be asleep again, but ends up actually falling asleep. The next early morning, Rudin goes outside and starts chopping wood, while Teresia gets to cleaning their clothes. As both parents are busy outside, Alan uses this opportunity and uses the insect summoning spell, causing his room to be filled with luminescent balls of spirits. Fortunately for Alan, his mom isn't paying attention, so he quickly gets on with it. And as the spirit balls are condensed once again, they manifest into a cat-sized grasshopper. Seeing its angry expression, Alan wonders if this creature will even listen to his commands. He decides to still give it a try, and with his half-broken youngling voice, orders the bug to fly to his hands. The bug, however, turns the other way, making Alan wonder if it's dumb or something. He suspects that the reason the grasshopper isn't listening to his commands must be because he hasn't met the necessary conditions yet. So he checks the grimoire and looks at the grasshopper's stat menu. He picks the name Dina for the green bug and then looks at its stats. When he learns that this tiny little insect actually gives him +1 endurance and agility, this fact causes Alan to blurt out the word awesome on impulse, prompting his mom to enter the room. Seeing the ugly insect grosses Teresia out, and she instinctively stomps on it. Despite this accident, Alan continues to test his summoning skill whenever he gets the opportunity, and one day decides to summon a beast. A white rat comes out, and as expected of an H-rank beast, it's also dumb as bricks, just like Dina. Still, Alan gives it the name Mousy, and then looks at its stats when he learns that it actually has an ability called Scurry. Alan manages to activate this ability, causing Mousy to scurry around him. This makes him wonder what kind of strong monsters he can potentially summon and control. For now, he can only create a total of 10 summoning cards. So he creates 10 Mousy cards, and as a result, his attack stats get a plus boost because of Mousier's buff. With this boost, he can now easily chop wood, even though he's only a year old. But he still doesn't think it's enough. This makes him wonder how much easier the game would have been if he had chosen any other difficulty, so he regrets picking Hell mode. Rodan comes back home with myoglobin all over him, making Teresia worry if he's hurt. But Rodan claims to be fine, explaining that he went to a boar hunt earlier, which caused this. Rodan asks Alan if he'd like to see the boar they've hunted down, and as Alan excitedly nods, Rodan carries him to the place where the beast is being carved up. On their way there, they see a flock of birds called Albaherons, who are no less than dinosaurs in size, so Rodan refers to them as monsters. Rodan tells Alan a fun fact, saying that he named him after those birds, hoping that he too would live a free life and fly around wherever he wants to in this world. He sleeps off on Rodan's hands as Rodan walks to take him to his creature. When they eventually arrive at the location, Rodan wakes him up and shows him the great boar. When he touches the great boar, the first thing he thinks about is the fact that the monster is so great, and he doubts that he can successfully defeat that kind of monster. One of their neighbors, Goethe, walks up to Ratten and hypes him up as the star of the day. The other villagers there hail Ratten because that kind of victory isn't one that anyone can achieve. So Ratten had done so well. Goethe notices Alan and comments on Alan's black hair and eyes. Alan greets him in return, and he is shocked that Alan can talk at the age of 1. He comments that Alan is growing so much better than Krita, his daughter, who is about the same age as Alan. Alan asks about the great boar and how strong it is. So Goethe explains that the great boar is a C-ranked monster. It isn't something that a person can single-handedly handle, and it needs about 20 men to kill it. This only gives Alan enough opportunity to gauge himself and think of how he could be better. 10 months pass by as fast as possible, and Alan is now 1 year and 10 months old. He keeps trying his hand at his skills, and he realizes that he can now summon G-ranked monsters. He can also successfully fuse together H and G-rank monsters. He has cards of both H and G-ranked monsters, and checks his cards, then tries to use his newly acquired power, but he gets a notification that he has low MP. He assumes the problem is hunger, so he goes to eat his meal. He rushes a huge plate of food, and his parents look visibly concerned. But he returns to his room immediately to check his powers. When he tries to fuse the cards again, it doesn't work. Again, he has low MP. He considers summoning another card, but again, he has low MP. Eventually, he gives up on it. 3 years pass by, and Alan is now 3 years old. He has gained enough strength and MP, and he can now fuse together his 2 cards. He fuses a G rank and an H rank card and gets a GH card. Then he summons a pet from the card. He successfully summons a bird G, and he is excited. The bird, which he names Chappie, is level 2 in agility and strength, and it also has the skill Voice Mimic, which makes Alan assume that he could validly use it against enemies when fighting. Alan goes outside with his new pets. The first one is Hoppy, a tiny bird that hops. He asks Hoppy to hop, and he hopes to use the hopping to distract his opponents. The next is Molly, a pet that has the ability to dig. He asks Molly to dig, and Molly digs a hole which he hopes to use to set a trap for his enemies. As he plans his imaginary life, he mistakenly falls into the hole that Molly had dug. This brings him back to the reality that he is just a child and he can't even fight anyone. It is 3 p.m., and this brings him more worries. He hears the voice that worries him and knows that she is around. The voice belongs to Krita, Goethe's daughter, as she is there to play with him as usual. They play night games every day, so they both set out their swords to fight. Krita is faster than he can imagine, and she has so much strength that she overpowers the reincarnated protagonist. After hitting him as much as she could with no defense on his side, he falls down flat and loses the game. His parents arrive, and Teresa's stomach is now as big as he had earlier predicted, which means a sibling is coming. Teresia and Raiden ask Krita to return home, and they also go home. During dinner, Alan suggests to his father that he would like to follow him to the farm to help with the harvest since his mother is pregnant. and won't be able to help. Roden refuses his offer, and Teresia also insists that she is strong enough to continue. They appreciate the fact that he has been helping with the house chores, but he is still a kid, and a 3-year-old boy shouldn't be on the farm. To him, he already has the strength of an adult and can take the burden off them. However, he understands that they wouldn't want him to do that because no parents would want to subject their child to such a thing. Teresia tells him to continue playing with Krata. They comment about his night games with Krata and how good they are. Roden informs him that with their present skills, they can't wait to see what their abilities will be during the appraisal ceremony. Alan doesn't know about it, so Roden explains that when they clock the age of 5, a ceremony will be held where they will learn what skills they have. If they get good skills, they will be able to break out of Surfam. Roden also comments that he has been seeing Alan throwing stones at the tree outside and inquires why. Alan lies that it is because they told him there are monsters outside, so he wants to throw stones at them to protect his mother. The real reason he has been throwing stones is to confirm if he has any other skills besides summoning. The following day, he practices his summoning. He has gotten to the stage where he can summon all day without getting tired. He looks at his aunt Danka too, but gets distracted when Krata arrives. They go for their usual duel, and as usual, he loses and falls. Roden arrives and Teresia comes to greet him. Unfortunately, Dana hops onto her and she falls in fear. She recovers after the scare jump, but suddenly gets severe stomach aches. Her water has broken and the baby is on its way. Roden commisses Krata to get her mother Matilda while he takes Teresa to the bed. Trying to help in his own way, Alan helps to boil water. He goes to inform them that the water is hot. And coincidentally, Matilda arrives too. She sends the men out of the room and helps Teresia with the delivery. The men are almost asleep outside the house when Teresa gives birth, and they call them in excitedly. Alan now has a brother, and Roden names the child Mash, a name that Teresa questions, asking if it isn't also the name of a monster. Roden reacts with a smile that shows her she is right. Seeing the excitement on everyone's face, Alan wonders why he was reincarnated, removing the fact that he is a game addict who just wanted to level up into a new game. He was nothing but a work addict who was lonely and lived a poor life in his previous world. There is nothing for him to miss in that life, and if he is being fair, he loves the idea of his new family. For now, all he wants to do is get his family out of Surfam. Teresia calls him to greet the baby. He goes to greet the child, who bursts into tears. He is terrified by this, and they jokingly tell him that kids are just like that. Alan is undoubtedly enjoying his new life. However, fingers crossed to see his growth. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss new episode every week. After that, years pass, and the child reaches the age of 5, asking his father how the appraisal ritual works. His father explains that during the ritual, if they discover he possesses a talent, he will be able to leave the status of serf. However, he must be very patient, because since the exploitation of these lands began, countless children have been born. And now most of them are 5 years old like him. As they move forward, they meet Kurena and her father, and everyone goes together to the commoner city. Kurena was extremely excited, hoping to receive the swordsman talent to become a knight. Upon arriving at the church, Alan notices there are many boys, some of whom look very clean and are dressed better than them. He wonders if these are the commoners. While doing so, he notices a group of people looking at him and mentioning his black hair, which is very rare among serfs. Shortly after, officials welcome the future heroes of the lands and tell them that everyone will be given a chance, because even the nation's hero can be born a serf, like Saint Classus, who was born a commoner, or swordmaster Dober, who was born a serf. Alan is amazed and understands that he must be of a low rank for the hero and weapon master classes. Now the conditions of the game are repeating in this place. They quickly enter the church, where Alan notices 3 statues. In the center is Mia, the same one who sent him a message when he was 1 year old. Then the rituals begin, and the first to step forward is the son of the town chief, named Paromus. Upon touching the crystal, the priest sees his statistics and announces that he is a merchant. His father gets excited because trade runs in his blood, while Alan notices that every talent has a rank as well, taking the opportunity to write this down in his notebook, which he realizes only he can see. Then another boy passes, leaving in tears after discovering he has no talent. Among those appraised is Dogora, the only one so far to have a skill at rank A, in addition to possessing the axe talent, and he was very excited. When the commoners finish the rituals, it is the serfs' turn, and they pass through very quickly. Finally, it is the turn of Kurena, Gerda's daughter. who runs excitedly to touch the crystal. When she does, the entire place lights up, and the priests are surprised when they see the slate. Kurena asks them about the result without understanding anything, and the priest tells her she won the grand prize. Kurena's talent is swordmaster. Everyone is surprised and excited to discover the existence of a swordmaster in their village. Gerda feels excited, although Kurena is not, as she had hoped to be a knight. For his part, Alan expected something like this, otherwise nothing could explain her exaggerated strength. Finally, it is Alan's turn. He steps forward, thinking the moment has finally come for his parents to know he is a summoner. But when he touches the crystal, it goes dark. Alan wonders what the hell is happening, but suddenly everything lights up with a power exceeding Kurena's. The glare pushes him back, but he gets up quickly to see the result with his father. However, the priest tells him that Alan possesses no talent. Alan remains in shock, wondering what is happening, and upon seeing the slate, he understands that his talent is completely unreadable. He begins wondering how on earth he can say he is a summoner now. However, his father, Rodan, grabs him by the shoulders and calmly tells his son that it is time to go home. At night, when they are together, Rodan tells him that they are still proud of him, even if he doesn't have a talent. While Alan thinks that despite their poverty and filth, he feels happy to be born into this family, even though everyone is actually younger than him mentally, he takes a look at his grimoire while everyone is asleep. He understands that he is the only one in hell mode in this world, and that all his statistics are at rank E. He remembers that everyone appraised should be at level 1 like him, but their skill ranks were higher, which is proof of the potential for evolution based on leveling up. He wonders why he has everything so low. Although he understands that leveling up is 100 times harder, this also means it is 100 times more worth the effort, so it isn't fair that his talent is unreadable. And as they walk together, Alan asks his mother why his father looks so serious. She answers that he arrived late at night and has been in this state since then. After a while, arriving at Kurena's house, Kurena excitedly asks Alan if he knew that being a swordmaster is stronger than being a knight. He pretends to be surprised, even though he clearly knew. Matilda arrives with a strong drink gifted to them by the village chief. Rodan gets excited, but soon returns to being serious. Observing him, Alan wonders if his father is upset because Kurena is a swordmaster while he has no talent, but realizes his father isn't that kind of person. However, Gerda warns his friend Rodan that if he keeps that face, the drink will make him tired. Rodan replies not to spout nonsense, but Gerda comments that he seems unhappy for them, and Rodan angrily replies that he is happy, and it brings him great joy that Kurena possesses exceptional power. Gerda asks him, then why the hell does he want to cut ties with them? Rodan answers that he doesn't want to do that, but Kurena has exceptional talent and could become a noble, and ideally, she shouldn't continue surrounding herself with starving, very poor people like them. Everyone present is surprised, and Gerda grabs him, telling him that changes nothing. For his part, Alan feels it is time to intervene and asks Kurena if they should stop them. Kurena gets excited, but the mothers beat them to it and give the men a beating. Alan is surprised and asks Matilda if his father and Gerda always fight. She reveals that they always have, but calmed down a bit after the children were born. Before that, they fought over anything. Teresia reveals to them that the four have been friends since birth, and 10 years ago, when they heard about these lands, they all moved together to exploit them, so they joined forces to build their homes. While they talk, Gerda and Rodan remember the moment they built the houses together, and now that they are calmer, they drink a toast to that. Days go by, and one day Gerda is told that a knight is looking for Kurena, who was just fighting with Alan. Now, in a scene change, while in the city, everyone talks about Kurena, but Dogora, the boy from before, asks Alan what a talentless person is doing in this place. But Kurena intervenes to defend him, telling him that Alan is a very strong person. Dogora tries to bite him, and Gerda grabs him before he causes a disaster. Meanwhile, the village chief announces that the knights have arrived, and Zenov, the captain of the knights, who is also a swordmaster, is introduced. Meeting with the village chief, Zenov demands to see Gerda and Kurena quickly. Her father is a bit nervous, while Kurena is excited. For his part, Alan thinks it would be sad if they took Kurena from the village now that she is a swordmaster. However, suddenly, Gerda gets agitated and explains to Zainov that his daughter has never held a real sword and is only 5 years old. Therefore, what he proposes is madness. But Zainov replies that since she is a swordmaster, everything will be fine and she must be put to the test. Otherwise, he will consider that they deceived the knights and the village chief, and tampering with the appraisal rituals is a sin punishable by death. Alan feels things have gotten strange, while Zainov orders the vice captain to get ready, as they must verify that the girl truly possesses that talent, and to do so, they must conduct a sword duel. Everyone in the village is surprised, while Gerda asks the captain to reconsider. However, Zainov tells him that if Kurena does not fight, both of them will be executed. Meanwhile, a knight stands right next to Kurena, and when she sees the sword, she asks if she can take it. He confirms this, and Kurena excitedly tells her father she will fight, which almost causes him a heart attack. Now, in a scene change, she finds herself facing the vice captain of the knights, who introduces himself as Librant. The fight begins, and without wasting time, Kurena attacks Librant, surprising everyone to see the little girl capable of handling a sword of that size. The problem is that when Librant gets serious, he pins her to the wall with a single kick. Gerda tries to intervene, but the knights stop him, as do Alan and his father. Gerda feels frustrated because despite Kurena having great talent, she cannot compete with the true experience of the vice captain. However, Kurena gets up again and begins to release an aura from within. The vice captain gets nervous, and Kurena attacks him quickly. Now he can do nothing but defend himself. He realizes Kurena possesses an extra skill, and now with a single sword strike, the child breaks his sword. Zainov ends the fight, while Kurena thanks the vice captain with a big smile for the fight, commenting that he is very strong for an old man, even though the poor guy is only 24 years old. Zainov is surprised to see she is a real swordmaster and begins patting the knights on the head. When Gerda picks up his daughter, she starts laughing. Zainov approaches them and tells them he acknowledges Kurena's strength. He apologizes for his rudeness, although Gerda continues to show his displeasure. However, Zainov mentions that it is time to talk about his daughter's future and tells him that if he wants, his friends can accompany him. Now, at the village chief's house, Alan sees that Gerda is still angry, which is very reasonable. But he wonders, what is the axe boy doing in this place? His thoughts are interrupted by Zainov, who introduces himself again and tells them he is here by order of the lord of these lands, who wanted to verify that the rituals were not tampered with. He tells the village chief that the village usually bears the name of the chief, but since a swordmaster was born in this place, the lord of these lands now wishes to name the village Kurena. The village chief accepts without complaint, while Gerda's eyes nearly pop out of his head in amazement. For his part, Zainov reveals to them that 3 years ago, a swordmaster was born into a count family. However, this seems curious to Alan, and while stealing fruits, he thinks that swordmasters can only be born among serfs, commoners, and barons. Zainov continues telling them that the mentioned master entered the service of the royal family, but his work was not up to standard, and upon making him repeat the ritual, it turned out he was just a normal swordsman. Because of this, they discovered that many nobles had forged talent results. For this reason, the royal family has begun to mistrust ritual results, and for this reason, he apologizes once again to Gerda for putting his daughter to the test. Gerda accepts his apology, while Zainov reveals that she will enter the academy when she turns 12 to subsequently move to serve the royal family. Meanwhile, the boy with the axe asks if he can become a knight if he goes to the academy, which nearly causes his father a heart attack, and he rushes to apologize to Zainov. Zainov asks who this boy is, and his father introduces him, telling him he is an axe user and wants to become a knight. Upon hearing this, Zainov answers that he will send a teacher to the village and hopes the boy works hard to be able to enter the academy. Then, Kurena tells Alan that he should also study with her. But Dagora intervenes, saying he has no talent. But Kurena orders him to be quiet because her friend Alan is very strong, while he thinks, for his part, that a 5-year-old child is insulting him, and his 5-year-old friend is defending him, while he is actually 40 years old. Meanwhile, Zainov notices Alan's black hair and eyes. Rodan tells him this is his son, while Gerda introduces his friend Rodan. Zainov stands up surprised and asks if he is the boar hunter. He apologizes for committing a folly, as he almost didn't greet the hero of that village properly. Rodan asks why he calls him that, and Zainov reveals that the lord of these lands is very pleased to receive the giant boar meat every winter that the village sends. He knows he risks a lot hunting them, so he congratulates him on his wonderful work and hopes he receives praise from his dear lord. Rodan accepts and shakes his hand, and after a while, he says goodbye to his friends. Upon heading home, he mentions that if a serf like him can earn the recognition of others, then despite the harshness of life, they must continue living with their heads held high and with dignity. Alan understands this. In the end, his difficulty lies in hell mode, and before returning home, he reveals to his father that he has a gift for his mother and Mash. He asks if he shouldn't have done that, but his father starts laughing and reveals that he also did the same thing. What a pair of rascals. This concludes our episode today. To follow more episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Alan finds himself excited because he finally succeeded in raising his summoning level from 2 to 3, unlocking 30 slots for summons and the strengthen skill. Moreover, he can now summon rank F creatures, and his blessings have become 1.5 times stronger, though he hasn't had the time to test them yet. While gathering with his family at night, we discover that his parents are expecting their third child. Masho is eager to know if the baby is a boy or a girl, while Alan is anxious to finish the dishes quickly to start his experiments. Teresia tells Masho that based on the strength of the kicks, it seems it will be a girl, and if so, she will choose the name. Rodan asks about the name she has in mind, but just as he is about to answer, Alan's grimoire opens with a message from Elma. Alan reads it under his breath, but his parents overhear and warn him that he cannot name his sister Elma. Teresia mentions he has been acting strange that day, so to change the subject, Alan asks his father about the wound on his arm, noting that sometimes when he leaves home, his wounds and fatigue completely vanish. Alan realizes his father has actually leveled up. But his father is a veteran boar hunter, and although Alan cannot see his stats, he assumes they are very high. In his own case, while his summoning level rose, his player level remains at 1, and he will never gain experience unless he hunts monsters. Unfortunately, serfs cannot leave without permission except for hunting. Alan tells his father he wants to go hunting too, but Rodan refuses, insisting that hunting is no game and is difficult even for him. Alan leaves in silence, and later in his room, he understands that the notification from Elma was a response to his persistent complaints. Finally, his talent will no longer be unreadable. He also learns that his father received a prophecy regarding his new class. Alan sees that while his skills are rank E, his stat growth is impressive. Magic and intelligence are rank S, while speed, strength, and charisma are rank A. Feeling satisfied that his efforts are paying off, he begins his tests. The first thing he does is strengthen Dinka, surprised to see its stats increase significantly, though this doesn't change his own shared bonuses. He summons the enhanced Dinka, which remains the same size but looks more majestic. However, his mother interrupts the test, terrified by the sight of Dinka, and kicks it into the other world. The next day, Alan discovers that the strengthen effect persists even when the summon returns to card form, meaning he should enhance as many as possible. After seeing his father off, Alan goes to hang the laundry, recalling that his previous synthesis attempts were mostly failures. However, by mixing a rank F insect with a rank F bird, he successfully summons a rank F plant. He is intrigued by the ability to summon plants, and his excitement grows when he sees their blessings increase both his magic and strength. This boost will allow him to produce more cards, as his previous pace would have taken years to level up. He summons the plant to see its special technique, and upon seeing it is a small apple, he names it Abpo. He remarks that it doesn't look fit for combat, but the apple shows its technique, fragrance. When he asks it to demonstrate, it plants itself in the ground and sprouts a small stem. Alan is disappointed, wondering if it's a joke, but realizes the garden will at least smell nice, though he grumbles that he didn't reincarnate just to be a gardener. His mother calls him for a meal, and he desperately orders Abpo to return to card form, but the apple doesn't listen. When his mother arrives, she notices the sprout and comments on its lovely scent, though she doesn't remember it being there. Alan wonders about its utility beyond providing stat bonuses. Time passes, and we see him training with Gerda, who, as usual, defeats him, but asks in surprise if he has grown stronger. Alan checks his book and sees his swordsmanship has reached level 3, and thanks to his expansion, he has much more strength and stamina. He tells Gerda he has indeed become a bit stronger. Looking at his grimoire, he thinks that Pochi is the only one with an offensive technique, but he cannot test it on humans. He glances at Gerda, considering it, but decides not to be reckless. Later at sunset, he is seen throwing stones at a tree trunk. He has done this 200,000 times. Masho tells him he is exhausted. Alan does this to see if he can level up, but receives nothing. Yet he finds it hard to stop, never knowing which throw might trigger the level up. Masho leaves him alone near Abpo's sprouts, and Alan realizes that thanks to Abpo's technique, his mana recovers in 5 hours instead of 6. On a rainy night, the family grows worried when Roden is late. They hear a noise and find Gilda and other villagers carrying a seriously injured Roden. Inside, Gilda reveals a wild boar gored him. Roden is very weak, and they cauterize the wound to close it. Gilda tells them he is out of danger thanks to a Morris flower. Teresia asks how they got such a precious flower, and Gilda explains the Knight Commander gave them gold coins as an apology for a previous incident, which they used to buy it. However, one of Gilda's companions blames everything on the commoners, and the others agree. Masho wakes up, and Alan takes him back to bed. Gilda stays with Roden and advises the others to rest. Later, alone with Gilda, Alan asks if what they said was true. Gilda reveals the village chief ordered the commoners to join the hunt because boar meat is vital. Most goes to the landlord, while they share the scraps. Commoners don't hunt alone because it is dangerous, but the serfs continue to hunt to sustain the people. Gilda explains the commoners joined because a hero, Rodan, appeared among the serfs, making the chief believe they would be safe. Rodan and Gilda opposed, including amateurs, but couldn't disobey. The commoners, acting tough because they couldn't stand being trained by serfs, fled in panic during the hunt. When a boar was about to kill a commoner, Roden intervened and took the hit. They killed the boar, but at a high cost. The next day, Roden wakes up relieved to see his family. Meanwhile, Alan reflects on his past behavior. He was only focused on getting stronger and viewed the world like a game, ignoring the harsh reality his family faced. It was time to act. Gilda arrives with Roden's share of the meat, promising to care for the family through winter. Roden thanks him, but Alan interrupts, asking his father for permission to protect the family himself, vowing to do his best. Alan begins performing his father's tasks, amazing everyone with his strength. He decides it's no longer time to act like a child. Since Karena is the village's future hero, it's fine if he stands out a little. He sacrifices some magic blessing for more strength, prioritizing his family. While harvesting potatoes with Gilda, Alan reflects on the fact that 60% of the harvest goes to the village chief, leaving them short for winter. The chief and his son, who was responsible for the hunting accident, visit to apologize. The son kneels for forgiveness. Alan is furious, but Roden tells the boy to be more careful next time. Alan is stunned by the gold his father received. Teresia, however, remains angry that her husband almost died, reminding them that even people of low status have families. Later, other serfs visit, and the atmosphere improves. Later, Alan prepares a field and summons Pianta to use the provocation skill to lure ducks for hunting. 50 ducks would secure their winter. When the skill doesn't seem to work, an Albayon appears, a rank C monster that Alan was named after. The bird eats Pianta easily. Alan considers a strategic withdrawal, but decides to try and defeat it after seeing its stats. He throws a stone and attacks with a wooden sword, but the bird deflects it. He summons Pochi to use their technique, but it fails. He realizes that once he loses his summons, he loses his stat boosts, making him much weaker. The bird prepares to devour him, but he manages to stop it at the last moment. Continuing the fight, Alan calls upon the Chews. They latch onto the monster's neck and begin to suck its energy. In this way, Alan manages to break free, though he ends up greatly weakened. Now that he has applied buffs, he can call the Pochis and Chews to attack, and with a blow to the head, he manages to knock it down. The grimoire appears, announcing that he has defeated an Albayon and obtained 100 experience points. Alan celebrates this, saying it was more satisfying than he thought. He then goes to his family to tell them of this feat, bringing the Albayon with him, although he lies to them, saying he caught it in the sky. Everyone looks on in amazement, though Mash starts to cry. His father asks his son if he hasn't broken anything, but he says he is fine. Gelda is impressed that he captured it using only a wooden sword and stones, though he sees the dog bites Alan has and asks if it bit him. Alan replies that he isn't sure, as he was very concentrated. Gelda simply believes him and tells Rodan that he will take care of bleeding the creature. At that moment, Alan sees the bump on Gelda's head, imagining that Kurena hit him, but well, details. After this, Gelda takes Alan to help him with the Albayon. Gelda tells him that of its 60 kilo weight, once bled, you are left with 20 kilos. Only half of that is edible. However, the wings are very valuable. To Alan, Gelda sharing this seems very kind, though he also mentions that 60% of the beast will end up with the chief. This rule also applies to wild monsters, except for rank E ones like horned rabbits, and the rank D Albayon. Then we see Gelda removing the magic stone from the beast. These are kept by the chief, since they are of no use to the serfs. But returning to the important matter, a child caught a beast while Rodan remains injured, so they could negotiate something with the village chief. This gives Alan an idea, and he tells Gelda. In this way, they go to the chief's house. They brought the beast before him to tell the story. This excites the chief, but they ask if they can keep the beast. The chief answers that they cannot, as the lord of the lands demands more and more meat. Hearing this, Alan assumes that is the reason they allow commoners to hunt. Given this, Gelda proposes giving him the feathers and the magic stone, but since that isn't enough, Gelda sorrowfully recounts the situation Rodan's family is living through. Alan also plays his part, saying he is hungry and even pretending to faint. With this, they manage to convince the chief to let them keep the beast. But Alan goes further, suggesting they keep the meat as long as they give the chief the feathers and the magic stone. Gelda follows suit, saying an Albayon isn't caught every day. The chief thinks it must be very difficult to catch them, so he gives them permission to keep the meat. With this achieved, Alan returns to the field to catch more Albayons. He uses piantas as bait and sends the chews to drain them. Then he stuns them with a stone, sends the pochis to bite, and finally hits them with the sword, managing to hunt 2 birds. Alan mentions that he hunts once every 3 days, and it is the first time he hasn't lost any invocations. The grimoire notifies him of the experience obtained, reaching 1,000 out of 1,000 and achieving level 2. Alan sees that his statistics will increase, except for his skills, but it is already an achievement for him since, after 6 years, he was finally able to level up and considers finally telling them about it. Back home, he shows them what he hunted. Rodan is surprised, but Alan highlights that he even did it at the same time. Rodan notices something but avoids saying it. Suddenly, they hear the bells, understanding it is time to train with Kurena. Thus, we see him dodging, blocking, and taking hits. All this while, he thinks about what he will do next to endure the winter, drying the meat he hunted and then changing the firewood. While counterattacking, he takes the opportunity to think that he should take advantage of the Albayon's presence to kill 20 and reach level 3, though he finds it difficult to do this before the end of the year. Due to this distraction, Kurena sees an opening, strikes him, and defeats him. After their combat, the girl says goodbye, promising to return another day. At night, we see Alan and his parents gathered. Our protagonist decided not to hide his secret anymore, tells them that when he was 1 year old, he received a divine oracle. His parents are astonished, just as he expected. His father asks if it is the god Ilal. Alan confirms it, quoting the words, "The divine being told him regarding granting him wisdom and strength." Teresia doesn't quite understand, so Alan explains that it seems he is more intelligent than others and a bit physically stronger. Additionally, he was told that his trial would be harder than that of 100 people combined. Hearing this, his parents lament. Rodan, for his part, asks if he passed the first stage today, as he noticed the scar on his face disappeared. Alan is surprised he noticed, to which his father tells him that he also passed his own trial. His mother asks about the result of his ritual. Alan answers that he received an oracle from the god of creation 2 months ago about it, and that his characteristics were determined as weak because his slow evolution was taken into account. Furthermore, the reason no gift appeared is that his is a completely new one. His father seems intrigued to know more. However, Alan replies that he doesn't know yet, though it is a lie. He can only apologize to his father for lying, but he cannot risk people labeling him a dangerous person if they see him summoning creatures. Then his mother approaches to hug him, very worried, as she never knew how hard he worked to pass the trial imposed by God. After all this, his father asks what he plans to do now. Alan replies that he will keep moving forward. Roden expected this answer, so he asks him not to hesitate to ask for help if he ever needs it. But he forbids him from speaking about this with others. Said he asks permission to tell Gelda, as he hasn't stopped bragging for days because of Kurena. The protagonist sees no problem with this and agrees. Months pass. Now Alan is seen cutting Albayon meat accompanied by Gelda, who comments that he always thought he wasn't an ordinary child, but he never thought he would receive a trial from his god. After this, we see them in the city walking with a huge sack of meat. They chat for a while. Gelda asks if it's his first time shopping. Alan confirms it. Gelda mentions that since the commoners haven't been in the hunts, everything is going better. Speaking of them, Alan asks the difference between them and the commoners. Gelda explains that it is due to status and taxes, as commoners are not taxed at 60% like they are. Instead, every year they must pay 3 gold coins per adult and 1 per child. This catches our protagonist's attention, and he takes the opportunity to ask if it's possible to become a commoner. Gelda replies that it is possible by paying 10 gold coins, but it can also be granted as a reward by the Lord of the Lands. Alan does the math, totaling 50 gold coins for his family. Later, they arrive at a business and trade the meat for salt. Then they go to another fruit stall. Back home in the afternoon, our protagonist reviews what he learned regarding prices. We see them returning over the following days. Everything he learns, he writes in his grimoire, discovering that 1 gold coin is worth 100 silver and 1,000 copper are 10,000 iron. Regarding product prices, he thinks he only needs to kill 500 Albayons to get his 50 gold coins. Then we see him go to another shop asking if they have a mana recovery potion. Since they don't, he asks for something that heals wounds. The seller points out some plants, so Alan draws them in his grimoire. He also asks about Miori's flowers. The seller says he doesn't have them and Alan couldn't afford them anyway, though he mentions he had one by chance. It was the one he sold to Gelda last month. He remembers that Gelda offered to pay 3 gold coins instead of 5 to save his friend. Since he hadn't sold it in days, he ended up selling it, losing 2 coins. Knowing now what Gelda did for his father, Alan is moved and gives the seller Albayon meat, saying that thanks to him his father was saved, and he will bring more meat another day. When he leaves the shop, he sees a weapon that costs 50 silver coins. At that moment, the blacksmith's son appears accompanied by the chief's son. The former pushes him, demanding he becomes his lackey. Alan is annoyed by this. However, he is not interested in a fight that doesn't give experience. Even so, he uses his sword to scare him, challenging the axe wielder to draw his weapon and fight. He accepts the duel, telling Paromus, the chief's son, to watch him while he returns. He immediately returns with a shovel. The axe wielder fights well, but he isn't at Kurena's level, and with one move, Alan disarms him. Before leaving, he tells Dagora that he will come to buy from him and leaves him angry. In the afternoon, the father takes off his bandages, boasting that he no longer has anything. Teresia asks him to be careful so he doesn't get hurt again. Alan enjoys this family moment, watching everyone talk. The next day, he is at Kurena's house training with Dagora, while the dangerous girl practices with her younger brother, and Alan sees how she holds back with him. Dagora tries to attack Alan by surprise. Alan manages to dodge, and Dagora ends up hitting the ground. After training, everyone returns home. At night, Alan and his mother look after his siblings. At that moment, his father Rodan and Gelda arrive. Both look worried. Inside the house, they explain what happened. The Lord of the Lands has summoned them and decided to increase the hunt quota to 15 boars. This means that now the serfs must also participate. Teresia opposes the decision. However, Rodan clarifies that these are orders from the Lord of the Lands. Gelda adds something even more worrying. If they don't meet the quota, they will recruit new serfs. Alan understands the problem well. With more serfs, there will be less land for each family, and some could lose it if they don't fulfill the hunt. Additionally, Gelda warns that next year the quota will rise to 20 boars. Teresia considers this absurd and too dangerous, but Rodan insists that the Lord of the Lands doesn't care about their opinion. Alan agrees. He says that even if they meet the quota, the chief could increase it again. That would only worsen the situation. When Gelda criticizes the commoners for being useless, Alan accepts it but claims they can make them useful. He trusts in the wisdom granted to him and asks to be allowed to take charge. Days later, Alan arrives accompanied by the commoners and the other serfs, ready to act. The next day, Alan and Roden met up with the commoners who would be joining them on the hunt. When the locals saw Alan, they were surprised that a little kid like him was tagging along to hunt. Roden explained that the plan was for everyone to adopt his strategy, while Alan would simply tag along to watch and learn. Alan assured the others that he would not get in anyone's way and thanked them for allowing him to come along, even though he felt a little upset about not being able to participate fully in the hunt. Alan reasoned that the most important thing right now was to train the new hunters. He wanted them to gain the experience necessary to help the group hunt more boars in the future because he did not want anyone to get hurt like his father did during last year's hunt. One of the commoners approached Roden and apologized for the injury he caused him last year. Roden did not hold any ill feelings about it and told him it was no big deal. Instead, he told everyone to focus on the goal ahead and not dwell on past mistakes. After that, the gate to the forest was opened, and they all began to make their way inside to start the hunt. As they entered the forest, Alan realized that after 7 long years of being a serf, this was the first time he was leaving the village. In his mind, this was a small but significant step toward eventually freeing his family from the life of serfs. What excited him even more was the thought of seeing the White Dragon Mountains. According to legend, a mythical white dragon lived somewhere near those mountains, and Alan had always dreamed of catching a glimpse of it. Shortly after the hunt began, everyone assumed their positions as a giant boar charged into view. When the moment was right, the bait team positioned themselves to lure the boar in a certain direction. Following them, the tank team moved in to hold the boar in place, preventing it from escaping or attacking anyone dangerously. Finally, the strike team arrived to deliver the final blow. Alan carefully observed the entire process and realized that this was the exact hunting technique that his father and other experienced hunters had been using for over 10 years to successfully capture and kill boars. He thought to himself that it was a carefully planned and executed strategy, and it was actually very impressive to watch in action. Once the boar was finally slain, the commoners felt an immense sense of pride. They understood that successfully hunting the boar was equivalent to passing the trial of the great kings, marking their achievement and skill. Alan estimated that because the boar was a C-rank monster, the commoners must have earned a considerable amount of experience points from this hunt. Curious, he pulled out his grimoire to see exactly how many points he received. Unfortunately, he found that he did not gain any experience points at all. He thought it over and realized that this made sense, since he did not participate in the fighting and had only observed the hunt from a safe distance. Nevertheless, Alan felt satisfied watching the commoners gain experience and grow more confident in their abilities. After that was finished, Alan started making small talk with some of the villagers. They began talking about the different kinds of meat they had gotten from monsters they hunted in the past. One of the men mentioned that he would be more than happy to help carve up any monster meat Alan managed to get his hands on. Alan listened carefully and decided to accept the offer. He took the man over to his stash of Albayon and asked him if he could help butcher them properly. Of course, the man did not plan to do the work for free. Alan offered him a deal instead. For every Albayon the man butchered, Alan would give him 2 packs of meat as payment. The man was surprised by how generous the offer was and immediately agreed to it without hesitation. Alan's main reason for doing this was simple. He was still working toward earning 50 gold so he could free his family from serfdom. If he had to hire a professional butcher, it would cost him even more money. By making this deal, he saved gold while still getting the meat prepared properly. Not long after that, the hunt began again. This time, they decided to change their strategy. Instead of hunting as one large group, they split into smaller teams. By doing this, they were able to double the number of boars they hunted in a shorter amount of time. Even so, Alan still could not understand why the Baron was so insistent on gathering more boars this year than ever before. Still, since the Baron was the one in charge, everyone had no choice but to follow his orders. Suddenly, one of the boars charged straight toward them. Jera reacted immediately and led the attack. He struck the boar head-on and delivered a powerful, fatal blow. After that, he called out to the new hunters and told them to step in and finish it. When they did, they feel proud of themselves once again for completing the hunt successfully. Last time, Alan did not receive any increase in his stats, but this time was different. He checked his status carefully and was shocked with joy when he saw that his stats had increased and that he had even advanced to level 3. He realized how he managed to do it. The method was simple but very effective. He figured out that if one of the creatures he summoned made contact with a monster before it was killed, then he was counted as a participant in the battle. At the last possible moment, Alan summoned Dina and caused the boar to step on him, creating contact. This allowed Alan to gain experience, but it also resulted in Dina being killed. As Dina slowly floated up into the sky, Alan apologized to him sincerely. Even so, he could not help but admit to himself that the outcome was worth it. 3 months later, Alan and Krina were invited to the chieftain's house to celebrate the new year. After spending some time there, they returned home to celebrate the holiday properly, surrounded by plenty of food. Jera and his wife also came over to join them. Everyone ate together, laughed, and enjoyed the warm atmosphere. While they were eating, Jera asked Alan if the chieftain said anything about them. Alan replied that the chieftain was very thankful for all the hard work they had been doing and made sure to express his appreciation clearly. Roden already expected this outcome because he knew they would not have any trouble reaching the quota of 20 boars that he suggested for the year. Alan then pointed out that the chieftain was so pleased with how well everything was going that he rewarded him with a bottle of liquor. Alan knew very well how much Roden and Jera loved liquor and how wild they tended to get whenever alcohol was involved. Because of this, Alan decided to use the bottle to his advantage and came up with an idea. Alan proposed a contest. He explained that if he won, he would be allowed to properly join the hunt next time, wield a spear, and fight alongside them as an equal. However, if Roden and Jera won, they got to keep the liquor for themselves. The moment he explained the rules, they realized too late that they had already fallen into Alan's trap. Even so, their desire for the liquor was too strong, so they decided to accept the challenge anyway. They asked Alan what kind of competition he had in mind. Alan calmly replied that he wanted it to be an arm wrestling contest. Both Roden and Jera were shocked that Alan would even suggest something like that to them. It seemed obvious that they would be far stronger than a child like him. Still, because they really wanted the liquor, they agreed to the contest without backing out. What they did not know was that Alan had been planning ahead. He had been saving several strength buff cards specifically for a moment like this. Because of that, he was confident that he could win even against adults like Jera and Roden. Jera stepped forward first to take on the challenge. He fully expected the match to be an easy win and did not take Alan very seriously at the start. However, as the contest began, Jera quickly realized that Alan was much stronger than he expected. Alan held his ground firmly, refusing to give in. Jera put up a strong fight and pushed back with all his might, but in the end, Alan managed to overpower him and win the match. After the contest, Alan thought carefully and estimated that Jera's strength stat must be somewhere between 150 and 200. Next, it was Roden's turn. Alan could tell right away that Roden was on a completely different level. While Alan's strength was somewhat close, Roden's power far surpassed his. No matter how hard Alan tried, Roden steadily pushed him down and won the arm wrestling match. With the contest decided, Alan kept his promise and handed over the bottle of liquor. Roden and Jera happily accepted it, and soon they were all drinking together and enjoying themselves. Although Alan did not get the result he wanted, the contest was not a waste. It helped him understand his own limits. He now knew that Jera was roughly around D-rank strength, while Roden was closer to C-rank. Roden then told Alan that he would not allow him to hunt boars until Alan could defeat him in strength. Rather than feeling discouraged, Alan accepted the challenge, determined to grow stronger and earn his place in the hunt. A little while later, Alan was pleased to notice that his summoner level had gone up once again. Curious, he immediately opened his grimoire to check what had changed. As he flipped through the pages, he was amazed by the number of new skills that had appeared. One skill, in particular, completely caught his attention. He had gained the ability to freely view E-ranked cards whenever he wanted. Alan instantly understood how valuable this ability was. With easier access to E-ranked cards, he was certain that his overall strength would rise quickly. In his mind, he was already confident that with this advantage alone, he should now be capable of challenging Roden again and possibly winning next time. However, as he continued examining the grimoire more closely, he noticed something strange. There was a new page that was not there before. When he flipped to it, He saw what looked like an empty cavity carved directly into the page itself. After experimenting a little, he realized that this was a storage skill. He could store items inside the grimoire as long as they physically fit within the cavity. The storage space seemed to stretch deeper than it looked, making it far more useful than it first appeared. Alan was confused. Storage was a king-tier skill, something extremely rare and powerful. He could not help but wonder why he would be given such an ability at this specific point in time. The timing felt deliberate, as if someone intended for him to receive it now. The next day, Alan decided to experiment with his new E-ranked summons. He took out a magic stone and activated his summoning skill. The first creature he summoned was an E-ranked insect, which turned out to be a brightly colored butterfly with shimmering wings. It was harmless, but strangely magical in appearance. Next, Alan summoned another E-ranked creature. This time, it was a saber-toothed tiger. The moment it appeared, Alan instinctively took a step back. The creature was intimidating, with sharp fangs and a powerful build. After watching it for a while, however, Alan realized that it posed no threat to him. Slowly, he grew accustomed to its presence and decided to give it a name. He called the tiger Tama and formally welcomed him as part of his growing team. Afterward, Alan attempted to fuse two of his summons. He kept playing with it, and it was a very beautiful butterfly. At that moment, his mother came, but she didn't notice anything because he had quickly hidden it. Alan is truly a smart boy. He started rambling and told her, "I was training very intensely." She replied, "Okay, my son, God be with you. Put in all your effort to become the strongest warrior." After she left, Alan started catching his breath, playing, having fun, and running as if he were the butterfly. But at that moment, something very strange happened. A wild tiger appeared in front of him and approached him closely. However, Alan did something, and it seemed this tiger was not aggressive. It wouldn't harm him. Then he activated the status check feature and found it was level 50, but it possessed a skill stat of 20 and a quickness stat of 35, much stronger than him. He approached it, placed his hand on it, and added it to his grimoire. Now he had the tiger and the butterfly. He then placed a magic stone and merged them together, resulting in a completely different bird. Perhaps you, the viewer, have special abilities. Watch and see what happens. That evening, we see Alan with his father, mother, and brother discussing some very strong creatures that had recently appeared. Therefore, Alan, you must be very careful because you are very dear to us, and you know how much your mother worries about you. Alan thought to himself, I wonder if my dad is going to keep nagging me for much longer. I definitely won't tell him my secret. Next, the scene shifts to his friend, Krina, who is engaged in a very intense duel with the official's son, that arrogant young man. She delivered a painful blow to his backside. Alan, meanwhile, sits leaning against a tree, watching as if it were a football match. He talks to his other friend, who is also training with a sword and wants to grow stronger, emphasizing the importance of diet and not overeating. Alan advises that the main meal should be spinach and fresh meat, which will give him high fitness. His friend thanks him and then gives him a magic stone. Alan thinks to himself, wow, this kid is so gullible. Thank goodness I was able to benefit from him. The scene cuts to Alan in the forest, with his grimoire open, having summoned many creatures. At that moment, something strange happens. A boar arrives and delivers a surprise attack, but the small creature comes and heals him. The butterfly tries to fend off the boar by sending out some paralyzing toxins. At that moment, the tiger's roll comes up. It pounces on the boar and sinks its fangs into its head, the final blow. The boar immediately falls dead. But in just a few moments, a second boar emerges. Alan starts yelling, "Oh, what terrible luck! This looks like it's going to be a long day." The boar charges him with a powerful attack. Just then, one of his summons emerges and blocks the blow as if it were a wall of steel. The boar instantly falls and dies. Alan then lies on the ground and says, "Thank goodness I have creatures that look out for me and help me. I don't know what I'd do without them." He summons all his creatures and assesses their status. The butterfly, the tiger, the bird, and the small grass-type creature are all high-ranked. As for the one-eyed wall, the stone type, it truly saved his life. The rest of the creatures form a single team. Teamwork is the most important thing. This concludes our episode for today. Stay tuned for the next part, but be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything new. As soon as they arrived at the noble's residence, they were received with a direct question. What did they want this time? They explained that according to the new decision, the Baron would begin visiting the region every month. The master of the house was surprised by the news. Then they added that in order to meet the requirements of the visit, it would be necessary to slaughter around 20 boars. He then wanted to know why they specifically needed Alan. The noble decided to clarify the situation. He said they needed someone capable of acting as the Baron's guide during his stay. They questioned why his own son could not take on that role. The man replied that Paloma was not suitable for the task. Alan understood immediately. Deep down, he knew that it was true. He agreed without resistance. The noble explained that he expected Alan to help demonstrate hospitality, beginning with a dinner before the hunt. Alan realized that the intention was to entertain him and please him, perhaps even win him over with small courtesies. Even so, he made it clear that he would not be easy to manipulate. The noble had heard comments that Alan's ideas had contributed to the success of the hunts the previous year. He was confident that the boy would be able to handle that responsibility. In Alan's thoughts, however, he cared little about the Baron. The reality was that as a serf, he did not have many options to leave the village. If he continued merely hunting boars and albatrosses, it would take at least 10 years to reach the status of commoner. The boy's father explained that if he refused, there would be no problem. Alan remembered something important. The Baron had the authority to grant the title of commoner. That could be his chance to rise in the social hierarchy. After reflecting, he decided to accept the role of guide. On the day of the Baron's arrival, the city was restless. Nobles made a point of flattering him. His daughter, Cecile, was also present. The Baron thanked Deboki for the work carried out over more than 15 years to establish Krina village. Ever since the land reclamation decree, he said that throughout the entire Grenelle thief, there was no greater example of success. He apologized for the confusion involving the boar meat. He knew that the extra request was troublesome, but he could not refuse a direct order from the king. The host was shocked to learn that the request came from His Majesty himself. Irritated, he blamed Viscount Carmel for having mentioned the hunts before the king. The butler advised him to calm down and taste the meal. Upon trying the dish, he was surprised by the flavor and asked what kind of meat it was. Not knowing how to respond, the host remained silent until Alan asked for permission to speak. He explained that it was a dish from Albayon prepared with meat slaughtered the previous day. They had used breast, thigh, and liver, seasoned with fresh herbs. The Baron asked whether the boy was the host's son. He replied that he was not, that Alan was a separate case. Someone at the table recalled that he was Roden's son, the hunter. Alan thanked them for recognizing his face and informed them that he would be the guide on that occasion. The Baron was impressed by his manners and asked whether his father had been a knight. The host explained that he came from a family of serfs. Cecile showed irritation and questioned why they had allowed a serf to be present in the house. Her father immediately reprimanded her, asking her not to treat anyone that way. Even so, she continued to stare at Alan with displeasure. The Baron called the boy and asked whether he was prepared to present the details of the following day's hunt. Alan promptly agreed. The man explained that if they did not reach the mark of 20 bow, his knights would take the front line. Alan realized that he did not fully trust the serfs. Cecile, on the other hand, became excited at the idea of seeing knights slaughtering boars. Alan apologized, but stated that 20 bow were a small number for them. Everyone was surprised to hear that coming from a child, he assured them that they would meet the target and that their performance would speak for itself. Before departing, the Baron asked Zeng to take care of his son and keep everyone safe. Zainov accepted without hesitation. At the camp, Alan indicated the hunting location and suggested that they climb the tower to observe the area. Cecile was impressed by the view. He explained that that was the forest where they faced the boars. Soon after they were informed that the hunters had arrived, Alan commented that the armor being used had been produced from scraps of hide, bones, and tusks from previous hunts, and asked that they convey thanks for the authorization. On behalf of his father, Roden, he explained that the strategy consisted of attracting the boars into the hunting zone. Speed was essential, which was why they used light equipment. He asked for patience as it might take some time before the animals appeared. The Baron was impressed and remarked that he would send a tutor the following spring to help Alan study for the academy entrance examination. The boy understood, but he knew that in the reality of Krina, studying was something distant. Suddenly, a man appeared running, chased by a boar. He and his group raised their shields to protect themselves. Then they used spears to wound the creature, and Roden appeared to deliver the final blow. Everyone was impressed by the group's coordination. Even without great individual strength, they worked together and considered themselves worthy of being called warriors. Soon after, 2 boars appeared. Some suggested calling the guards, but Alan asked them to wait. He explained that the hunters were trained for that type of situation. In his thoughts, he believed that every creature lured in should be killed. Letting one escape was wasteful. However, in the past 10 years, he and his father had not managed to eliminate all the animals, mainly due to the lack of proper armor. 60% of the meat was collected as tax, and the remainder had to be exchanged for basic items. The spears were the only equipment they could improve. Even so, by mastering efficient strategies, they were gradually able to enhance their resources. After observing the difficulty of the confrontation, someone commented that 17 bow were still missing. Alan corrected them. Only 10 remained. 7 had already been slaughtered at the end of the previous year. He believed they would reach the target before the following month. The Baron was impressed and concluded that his knights would not be necessary. Alan gave thanks, imagining that his father would be pleased. Then he made 2 requests. The first was authorization to construct 2 shield walls. The Baron asked whether that was for the next hunt or already in preparation for the following year. He then asked if Alan needed anything else. As his second request, the boy asked for permission to acquire goods that were not available in the village, especially alcoholic beverages. He explained that he wished to trade them and allow their distribution among the servants. The man questioned the reason. Alan clarified that with the increase in the number of boars being slaughtered, there was a real concern that the abundance of meat might reduce the value of the village products. Exchanging part of the meat for imported drinks would help prevent a possible collapse in the local market. Furthermore, he emphasized that the hunters risked their own lives to be effective. The man understood the drink would help keep morale high. He stated that he would consider the request favorably. Alan expressed his gratitude. Before concluding, the Baron remarked that they had been fortunate and advised them not to let it go to their heads. The scene shifts to everyone gathered before the man. He praises the group's hunting skills and states that great achievements deserve rewards. Otherwise, he would not be a good Baron. Then he announces that he will grant them the social position of commoner. In Alan's mind, excitement rises immediately. Now he will be able to hunt beyond the boundaries of the estate. He had dreamed of that moment countless times over the past years. His first destination would be the White Dragon Mountains, where he intended to hunt dragons. The Baron adds that all participants in the hunts over more than 10 years will also receive the same status. He asks them to identify those who have already worked for a decade. Afterward, he decides to return to the residence so that he may head back to the city and rest. He further explains that His Majesty wishes to promote the village of Krina as an example to the rest of the kingdom. For that reason, he asked how the boar hunts had begun. The Baron observes that it is a delicate matter and asks whether Roden can recount what happened. It all began in the spring. 13 years earlier, around 100 serfs from neighboring villages moved to the region to assist in developing the lands under the reclamation decree. After 6 months of hard labor, they had cleared a large portion of the forest. Autumn was approaching when disaster struck. A massive boar suddenly appeared and attacked, devouring most of the wheat and potatoes reserved for winter. Many of those serfs had gone to the frontier after suffering hunger in their former villages. Returning was not an option. It was then that Roden took the initiative. He proposed that they hunt the boars to obtain meat. At that time, they did not possess the weapons, armor, or knowledge they have now. Even so, all the men united using pickaxes and hoes as improvised weapons and managed to bring down a single boar. The Baron is impressed by the account and states that they should be proud for they united to accomplish an extremely difficult task. However, he reminds them that they lost a friend in the process. After defeating the boar, and their wounds were healed. Yet their companion was not as fortunate. He has told Roden many times that he should not blame himself, but he does not listen. At that moment, Alan finally understands why his father protected those commoners. He had already lost friends in that way. The Baron does not wish for such a painful memory to be revived. But he wants Roden to understand something. Despite the losses, the village would never have prospered without his prudent decisions. He wishes to honor everyone's bravery with new rewards. Roden then asks whether his son could work in the Baron's household. The man consults the butler about the existence of a vacancy. He replies that there is one. The request is then accepted. Alan, however, does not wish to work there because he needs to take care of his summons and feels that he must find a way out of that situation. Even so, seeing his father so happy, he keeps his thoughts to himself. Upon arriving home, he bids farewell to everyone. He decides to have one last sparring match with his friend, and this time he wins. He tells her that they will continue seeing each other often. His father asks him to work with dedication, for that is the first great opportunity of his life, and says that he places many expectations upon him.
Forget grinding for years. This 8-year-old just shattered the system, hitting level 12 in a single day thanks to a secret mechanic. If you think you know this anime, buckle up, you're wrong. Meet Alan, dutifully carrying Cecile so she can snag a high-up fruit. He suggested the shoulder ride when her reach failed, and Cecile agreed, warning him about potential kicks. They got the fruit, but plot twist, she hated the sour taste. So Cecile sends Alan to town for something better. Just as he's leaving, a massive shadow looms. A ship, looking like a giant magic stone-powered tool. Alan is absolutely floored by its scale. The next day, Alan wakes up feeling a strange energy from a nearby plant. Checking his stats, he finds 1 rank F and 1 rank E. Strange excitement bubbles up before breakfast. In the dining hall, Raquel, the head of service, inquires about his rapport with Lady Cecile. Alan answers, more or less, prompting Raquel's pitying comment about servant life versus being a page. Alan asks the difference. Higher-ranking staff, butler, maid, etc., are family. Pages are temporary help, not considered family. This clarifies why his father cried. The Baron made Alan family. Alan also notices how little the Baron's family actually eats. The Baron's wife praises how fast Alan adapted, noting his manners surpass those of a serf. The Baron agrees, but admits Alan lacks talent. Cecile chimes in, laughing that she's a mage, a solid 2-star talent. Her older brother, Mahai, is a swordsman, but their father scolds her for bragging. Young Thomas is the only one without a talent. The Baron encourages Thomas about the Nobles' Academy in the capital, but Thomas dreams of the academic city like Mahai, a place only for the talented. Even the Baron couldn't go. Hence his path led him to the Nobles' Academy, where he met Thomas's mother. Later, during free time, Alan explores the city, starkly different from his village, and spots an adventurers' guild. He tries to join, but he's too young, 8, not 12. Undeterred, he scopes out monster ranks and payout values. An annoyed adventurer warns him this isn't a playground. As Alan apologizes to leave, he asks why some rewards lack locations. The man explains those monsters are ubiquitous. Before kicking him out, Alan asks about rank assignment. The farther from the city, the higher the rank, culminating near the White Dragon Mountains. Alan beams, the man's spilling secrets. He points to tough missions. Why are they untouched? The adventurer says they're too dangerous, meant for knights. Then Alan spots the White Dragon mission. The man shuts him down again, citing the dragon's power, but adds a crucial detail. Huge mithril deposits exist in those mountains, fueling escalating rewards for decades. Alan calculates the mithril alone must be worth over 1,000 gold. The adventurer's party arrives. Alan excuses himself, exclaiming he's set on his next target. One day off, Alan sprints to the city gate. A guard stops him for a permit, then profusely apologizes, seeing it's from the Granville family. Once the gate opens, Alan bolts for the forest, ready with his newfound knowledge. He summons Hawkins and sends out multiple units to scout for monsters. Next, he summons Tama to test something. Hawkins returns, signaling a hit. Alan follows, but worries. He ran for minutes, realizing he needs to specify distance next time. He finds a goblin group, quickly plans, summons more tamers for an ambush attack using Claw. It thins the herd, but not enough. He summons Papillon, whose sleep powder knocks the rest out. Alan finishes them with stones, extracts the magic stones, and sends Hawkins hunting again. They farm until nightfall. Total haul, 16,000 EXP, netting him 2 levels. He learns Papillon's 80% success rate against goblins, and that magic stones can't summon creatures of a different rank, D to E, or vice versa. He wants to keep going, but the birds won't move. They aren't nocturnal. Stranded without his planned transport home, he's lost. The next day, he buys iron balls, wanting better projectiles than rocks. After more hunting, he hits level 12, focusing on farming easy XP while upgrading gear. Returning home, the butler escorts him to the Baron. The Baron praises his excellent service over 2 months, but demands to know what he's doing on his days off. Alan tells the truth, hunting, because hunter's blood runs in his veins, a phrase that feels unexpectedly right. The Baron chalks it up to instinct, asking what he does with the horned rabbits. Assuming he's just selling his permit, they try to stop him. Alan reveals he's been discarding them. Sebas corrects him. The Granville estate will buy rabbit meat for 1 silver coin per pack. This is fantastic news, and Alan thanks them profusely. On another day, Alan plans to hunt 100 goblins, but the Hawkins arrive in a frenzy. Alan rushes out and finds the adventurers from the guild fighting goblins. The man from before is wounded. Alan jumps in using his iron bullets, careful to keep his summons hidden. At level 12, his attack and agility are over 300, allowing him to handle rank D monsters alone. After the last goblin falls, the white-haired girl rushes to check on Raven, who's severely injured. She begs the priestess to heal him, but she's out of MP. Desperate, she begs him to hold on. Alan steps up, offering to use a healing herb from his grimoire. He takes a leaf of life and places it on Raven's abdomen. It glows, and the wound vanishes instantly. Raven wakes up, fine. The girls ask if he's okay, and he confirms it. Alan spots an injury on Rita and uses another leaf. They protest wasting something so valuable, but Alan reassures them. Raven recognizes Alan from the guild and thanks him for the save. As Alan prepares to leave, Raven stops him, insisting on repayment. Alan declines a reward. He needs to farm, but makes them promise to keep his abilities a secret. They agree, adding he can call on them if needed. Alan asks them to gather about 100 rank E magic stones for him by next week, which Raven agrees to. As he walks away, Alan analyzes his healing. Unlike the flower for his father, which took a month, the Leaf of Life healed Raven instantly. Percentage recovery versus fixed HP recovery. Resting, he checks his EXP and recalls Hawkins's strange behavior. He summons him, demanding why he disobeyed orders and led him further away. Was it concern for the adventurers? Hawkins nods. Yes. Alan is stunned that a summon can prioritize feelings over direct commands. Elmia created incredible beings. Seeing Hawkins look dejected, Alan quickly clarifies he wasn't angry, just surprised, promising clearer instructions next time. That night, Alan is sneaking Cecile, who's trying to swipe a jam jar. Why? She wants to bake cookies for her older brother, Mahai. Alan doesn't quite grasp it, but in his distraction, he loses balance, and they tumble to the ground, making a racket. They disguise the noise with loud meowing, successfully fooling whoever heard them.
I'm back with a brand new part of the story of our little beast summoner, Alan. Get ready to witness absolute greatness, bro, because today's episode is literally legendary and insanely good. So don't forget to drop a sweet like, leave an awesome comment, and don't forget to pray upon the prophet. Let's dive right back into the story. After that, Alan went back to the forest to hunt and managed to take down a massive giant boar. Then, he ran into a huge iron-bodied ant. When he tried to cut it open to extract its magic stone, he failed and realized the only way to beat it was with magic spells. Checking his stats, he noticed his intelligence INT was pretty high, and figured that would definitely help him use magic. He then took Cecile and went to a sorcerer in town to test his magical abilities. But when he tried using the magic evaluating crystal, it didn't light up at all, proving he absolutely couldn't use magic. He was pretty bummed out, and Cecile kept making fun of him. Picking up our story, we see the Baron eating when suddenly, the town's alarm bells start ringing. Sensing a huge threat, the head butler rushes in and tells him a giant monster is at the town's borders and is about to attack. When the Baron asks how he knows, the butler says the gate guards reported it. The Baron immediately asks for the captain of the guard, but it turns out he's out on a mission and won't be back for 2 hours. The Baron then orders the guild to evacuate the townspeople and send adventurers to defend the town. When Alan hears this, he asks the Baron for permission to join the fight and protect the town. Cecile jumps in, saying, "You're my servant! You can't do anything without my permission!" But Alan basically tells her to sit this one out, reminding her that he now officially holds the Beast Hunter title, giving him the right to help the adventurers. We then see the terrified townspeople running for their lives as Alan sprints toward the monster. Turns out this monster is called the Murder Ogre. Alan had seen its bounty at the Adventurers Guild before, and knows it's a B-rank monster that many adventurers have failed to hunt. The guards and adventurers are rushing people inside to safety when a guy runs up panicking, saying his wife and kids are stuck in a wagon outside. Alan looks over and sees this terrifying massive ogre just munching on the wagon's horse. The guy's wife and daughter are cowering inside, terrified. The ogre starts moving toward them to eat them, But Alan steps in, pulls out his iron ball, and chucks it right at the monster. Bam! The ogre's eye literally starts bleeding. The chase Alan keeps taunting the ogre to draw its aggro. A guard yells at him, "What are you doing, kid? Get inside!" But Alan ignores him and throws another iron ball. This time, the ogre blocks it with its hand. Alan tells the guards he's going to lure the ogre to the White Dragon Mountains. In a flash, the ogre lunges at him, but Alan dodges at the last second and makes a run for it. While running, Alan checks his stats and realizes he's drained all his mana boosting his stats, meaning he can't summon any beasts to help him right now. The ogre tries to smash him while running, but Alan narrowly dodges again. Lying on the ground, Alan frantically thinks, "What do I do with this annoying ogre that keeps grinning at me?" Suddenly, he gets a notification. He checks his stats again and sees he's recovered a good chunk of mana. He quickly recalls some of his summoned beasts to free up slots for the ones he actually needs right now. He gets back up, making the ogre chase him again. He summons his sleep powder butterflies, but to his shock, the powder does absolutely nothing. He tries to make the butterflies use stronger sleeping doses, but the ogre is completely immune and just keeps swatting them out of the air. Alan keeps running, thinking, is this guy ever gonna give up? The chase goes on until nightfall. Alan hides in the woods and the ogre searches for him. Alan rests against a tree, wondering how he's gonna defeat this thing, but he refuses to give up. He puts on the stealth cloak he bought earlier from the weapon shop, but surprise, the ogre spots him from afar. Alan's like, "Nope, I'm out," and bolts again with the ogre hot on his heels. The aftermath and reward. Fast forward 3 days, Alan finally makes it back to town. The gate guards spot him and rush over. Alan looks completely exhausted and just passes out. When he wakes up, Cecile is right there. She's secretly super happy to see him awake, but yells at him anyway, saying she was worried about her servant. The Baron's assistant asks him what happened, and Alan explains that for the past 3 days, he was just constantly running away from the ogre. When he meets the Baron, he apologizes for not killing it, saying all he could do was lure it far away from town. The Baron and the guard captain tell him not to apologize. Protecting the town and its people is an adventurer's job, and luring it away was a huge help. Baron Granville decides to reward him, giving him 2 pouches of coins, one with 10 gold coins from the Baron, and another 10 gold coins from the family he saved. Alan is over the moon, thinking, with this cash, I can finally buy that expensive mithril sword I've been dreaming of. Before he leaves, the Baron warns him to be careful and not hunt too far from town. Testing summons. Later, Alan goes back to the forest to hunt and finds another iron ant. With his brand new sword, he easily chops off its legs, breaks its iron belly armor, and loots the magic stone. Then, he starts experimenting. He calls out to 2 hawks flying above, telling a third one to leave for now. He pulls some fruits and veggies from his magic bag, hides one in a sack, and summons the hawks one by one to guess what's inside. The first 2 guess correctly, but when he summons the third hawk, the one he sent away earlier, it has no idea what's in the bag. He summons a brand new hawk, and it guesses correctly too. He realizes his summons can share information. To test their intelligence, he summons a bird named Bobo, which is supposed to have a higher IQ than the hawks. But when he asks Bobo what's in the sack, Bobo doesn't know. Alan figures out that summons of the same species share a hive mind network, but different species don't. He's thrilled with this new info about his summoning system, realizing he can eventually upgrade their abilities and build an unbeatable army of beasts. Time skip and dragon threat. 6 months pass, and Alan is now 9 years old. We see him sparring with Mahai again, but Mahai is still incredibly fast, and Alan just can't keep up. Alan is thinking, man, I've defeated 2,000 C-rank monsters over the last 6 months. My level should be way higher. Why can't I match his speed and power? He gives it everything he's got, but Mahai disarms him with 1 strike and wins the duel. Captain Xeon congratulates Mahai on his progress, while Alan is literally fuming with frustration after losing again. He realizes the academy is leveling Mahai up crazy fast, and just grinding monster hunts might not be enough. Mahai shakes Alan's hand, clearly not as arrogant as Cecile, and praises him for his improvement. Alan brushes it off, saying, what improvement? You still beat me. Mahai says he's sure Alan will make a perfect servant for his sister. Cecile chimes in, mocking Alan and telling him he needs to practice his sword skills more, which gets on Alan's nerves. Later during dinner, Mahai is shocked to hear about the ogre attack, and that Alan was the one who lured it away. He asks if Alan got hurt, and Alan says he's fine. Cecile, of course, teases him about being bedridden for 3 days straight afterward. Thomas asks Mahai if he could have beaten the ogre, and Mahai admits there's no way he could solo a B-rank monster. Suddenly, a guard rushes in with terrible news. The White Dragon has moved. Everyone is shocked. Alan knows the White white dragon is a massive A-rank threat with a 1,000 gold bounty. The guard explains adventurers spotted it flying towards the Carnell region. The Baron is actually relieved because that means it's far away from the White Dragon Mountains, which are full of mithril veins. He thinks they can finally mine the mithril and fix the town's broke economy. He orders Captain Zeon to scout the mines, but Zeon says they need to make sure the dragon has actually settled far away first. Mahai wants to join the scouting mission since the mountains are crawling with dangerous monsters like orcs and goblins, but Zeon refuses, saying it's too dangerous. Mihai's mom also tells him to focus on his studies, so he stays behind. Of course, our boy Alan overhears all of this. He sees this as the perfect opportunity to farm some serious XP by fighting those high-level monsters alongside the knights, which would help him finally beat Mahai. The shared vision skill. Later in the forest, Alan checks his stats. His mana is fully restored, and he decides it's time for more experiments. He notices his summoner level has hit level 5, unlocking a brand new skill called Sharing Shared Vision. He tests it out on one of his eagles, and boom! His eyes glow red, and he can literally see what the eagle sees. He sends the eagle high up and gets a bird's eye view of the whole forest. He's totally blown away. Not only can he see through the eagle's eyes, but he can also control its movements in any direction. He wonders how many summons he can link up with. He summons 3 eagles and uses the skill, effectively creating a multi-monitor setup in his head. Then he summons a tiger and links with it, but the mental strain is too much, and he gets a massive headache, so he cancels it immediately. He realizes the limit is 5 summons at a time, hoping to increase that cap later. Looking at his stats again, he decides to heavily invest his intelligence INT points. He realizes he's been ignoring the INT stat of his beasts, so he boosts it and tries the shared vision again. This time, no headache. He finally understands the value of the INT stat. He starts testing this out on a bunch of different summons. To test out this new shared vision in combat, he finds a group of iron ants. Using the skill, he directly commands each beast, telling them exactly what moves to use. The beasts execute his orders perfectly. He's thrilled because his summons used to just attack randomly, but now he has full tactical control. Suddenly, he finds a weird potato on the ground. It literally plants itself into the dirt and grows into a strange item that restores 1,000 of his mana. He then summons an owl, realizing he hadn't tested night vision yet. Now he's got an eagle for the day and an owl for the night. He's successfully built an army he can fully control. He gathers all his beasts and orders them to go hunt on their own, but strictly warns them to stay away from any humans. He's walking around super happy because his army is auto-farming while he does other things. He even realizes he can use shared vision to check up on his family. He sends a bird over to his parents' place, feeling super relieved to see they're doing well while he works at the Baron's mansion. Outro. And that's where our recap ends for today. But the story of our legendary beast summoner Alan is far from over. If you're hyped for the next episodes, bro, don't forget to support the channel with a like and subscribe so you don't miss the new episodes the second they drop. If you made it this far, drop a comment praying upon the prophet. Catch you guys in the next story. Peace.
Can you imagine living in a world where monsters control your nation's wealth while you secretly earn XP by wiping them out from the shadows? Our hero decided he's done waiting. He's taking the fight to them, erasing their outposts one by one. But the biggest twist isn't his power. It's the devastating news that's about to turn his world upside down. Buckle up, because the story starts right now. We continue our story and see the Baron talking to the military commander. He asks him, "What did you accomplish in exploring the mountains during the last 6 months?" The commander replies, "Just as we expected. Because of the absence of humans, monsters have taken control of all the mines that contain the rare Egyptian stones." He adds that the monsters' numbers are large and they are almost settled there. The Baron then asks, "How long will we need to regain control of our mines again?" Commander Zenoff answers, "At least 3 years." But the Baron doesn't like that time frame at all and orders him to finish the matter as soon as possible. Zenoff notices that the Baron is extremely upset because he knows these mines are very important for them to regain in order to improve their economic situation. After that, the Baron asks Commander Zenoff, "What's the news about Commander Carnell?" Zenoff replies that Carnell tried to use those mines, but unfortunately, he provoked the White Dragon. The White Dragon literally wiped out all the workers and burned them alive. While he is listening to their conversation, Al receives a notification that he has gained 15,000 points, and this is because of the sharing skill. We learn that the monsters he sent to the forest managed to kill a giant orc. Al becomes very happy and excited and says, "When I reach the age of 12, I will leave the job I'm doing right now because I want to become an adventurer. During these 2 years, I will repay Baron Grenville's kindness and try to help them eliminate the monsters." Then we see Al heading to the goblin lair, and the goblins begin begin gathering to attack him. With the help of the powerful monsters he has with him, he manages to eliminate a large number of them. By using the sharing skill, he is also able to determine their locations. Of course, he is trying to eliminate the largest number of goblins and destroy their settlements because they pose a huge threat to humans. He says the time has come to wipe them off the map completely. We see him giving orders to the giant bears he summons to attack the goblins and wipe them out. The goblins are literally terrified by the size of these giant bears that he managed to summon. When they realize there is no hope of fighting back, they decide to run away. But Al has already surrounded them completely and starts eliminating them one after another. Then the goblin chief appears, furious and angry at Al. Al sends a giant bear to finish him, and it succeeds in killing him. After destroying the goblin lair, Al gains about 48,000 experience points. Even though the experience points are huge, Al still doesn't seem satisfied. He continues searching for every goblin and orc lair so he can destroy them and grow stronger. Later, we see Mahai graduating from the academy. His sister Cecile and Al go to welcome him. As soon as Mahai sees Al, he greets him and, just like usual, the first thing he does is challenge Al to a duel. Mahai's siblings are surprised because their brother seems different, and this isn't like him. Meanwhile, Al looks at his stats and says, "Now I can summon a large number of powerful monsters, and I've raised my level appropriately. There's no reason for me to lose to Mahai this time." We learn that as soon as Mahai arrived, he asked to challenge Al without any restrictions. Al prepares to use all his strength. As the duel begins, Al attacks Mahai with incredible speed and says, "My speed has doubled compared to the last time I met Mahai." Mahai is actually surprised by Al's speed, but he still manages to block all of Al's attacks. Al becomes shocked and says, "Even though my attacks are fast, I can't land even a single hit on him." As Al continues attacking, he begins to feel exhausted and says, "Could Mahai be reading my movements and predicting them?" Suddenly, Mahai attacks him at great speed. Al barely blocks the attack and says, "My level in the sword skill is low, and that's why he's surpassing me." Then, Mahai suddenly lands a powerful strike that sends the sword flying from Al's hand. Just like usual, the duel ends with Mahai's victory. Al feels extremely frustrated and sad because he failed to defeat him for the third time. Al wonders, what more should I do to finally defeat him? When he goes to greet Mahai, he is shocked because Mahai completely ignores him and walks toward his father, King Grenville, who tells him, "You worked hard during the 3 years at the academy until you graduated. You've become a strong fighter now, and I can rely on you." As usual, Cecile goes to Al and thanks him for fighting her brother Mahai, but she keeps teasing him and says, "You will never be able to beat him." She then suggests that the best solution is for her brother to give Al combat lessons. Al actually likes the idea. Thomas decides to join them in training as well. Later, Mahai goes to his siblings and tells them he wants to talk. He says, "I must leave now to fulfill the duty of nobles." Cecile and Thomas don't understand what he means. He explains that he will leave for a long time and doesn't know when he will return. They become worried and beg him to stay. Cecile notices that their father and mother look very sad because they are extremely worried about Mahai. Mahai reassures them and says, "Don't worry about me. It's just 3 years and I'll come back." Al remembers what Carnell once told Baron Grenville, that he had very talented children. At that time, the Baron was upset because he knew that once his son finished the academy, he would be summoned to participate in the war against the monsters. Later, we see Mahai preparing his bag and saying goodbye to his sister, father, and mother. When he gets into the carriage, he hugs Al and tells him, "I want you to take good care of my sister. No matter what happens, try to defend her and always keep her safe." After that, Al continues destroying more goblin lairs and manages to reach level 35. He then uses the sharing skill again and heads into the orc territory. He attacks them. When the orcs try to shoot arrows, he uses the Golden Knight ability to block their arrows. Then, he summons a group of spiders to restrain the orcs guarding the gate. After capturing them, he enters the lair. Once inside, the orcs quickly gather and attack him. Al summons the giant bears again, and a fierce battle erupts. While observing the battle, he notices his experience points increasing rapidly as he kills many of them. Suddenly, he is shocked when a magic attack flies toward him, but the Golden Knights manage to block it. When he looks for the source, he finds a group of desert orc shamans responsible for the attack. 3 of them prepare to cast magic against him. Al becomes frustrated because he cannot use magic like they can, but he says, "I will never lose to them." He blocks their attacks again with the Golden Knights, but their magic is extremely powerful and begins affecting his summoned monsters. So he takes out an iron ball and throws it at one of them, smashing his head. He becomes very happy that his plan worked. He pulls out 2 more metal balls from his magic toolbox, but suddenly the remaining shamans disappear and attempt to attack from behind cover. Al finds another opportunity to throw the metal balls and attack them. Meanwhile, one of the orcs runs to the orc chief and says, "Chief, help us. We're getting completely crushed." Soon, Al is shocked to see huge numbers of orcs heading toward him. He says, "Their numbers don't matter. I can summon any number of magical beasts." He summons a large army, and an enormous battle begins between Al's summoned beasts and the orcs. While watching the battle, the giant orc chief suddenly appears. 2 giant bears attack him, but he kills them with a single strike. strike. Al is shocked by his immense strength. He keeps summoning more bears, but the orc chief kills them easily every time. Suddenly, one of the orc shamans launches a magical attack at Al. The golden knight blocks it, but this time, the knight is destroyed by the strength of the spell. Another shaman attacks, and two of Al's monsters try to block it, but the attack sends Al flying. He uses his healing skill to restore his HP and desperately searches for a way to defeat the powerful orc chief. Suddenly, he hears a voice saying, "Are you having trouble defeating the orcs and their chief?" Al turns around in shock and sees Commander Xenoph standing beside him. He doesn't know how Xenoph appeared there. Xenoph says he saw the huge smoke from afar and came to check what was happening. Al apologizes and says he wanted to defeat the orcs himself. Realizing Xenoph saw his summoned monsters, he quickly hides them. Xenoph decides to handle the orc king himself and orders his assistant to deal with the rest. He confidently approaches the orc chief. Al becomes happy because if Xenoph kills him, Al will still gain experience since he participated in the battle. The orc chief attacks Xenoph immediately, but Xenoph blocks the attack effortlessly and pushes him back. Al is shocked by his incredible strength. Xenoph's assistant explains that Xenoph is called the Demon of War because of his overwhelming power in battle. The orc chief keeps attacking Xenoph, but Xenoph blocks every strike easily. Meanwhile, Xenoph's assistant notices the orc shamans and flies toward them at great speed. A group of orcs surrounds him, but with a single strike he pierces through them and kills them all. One shaman fires a magical attack, but the assistant cuts the spell in half and continues fighting until he wipes them all out. Al is completely stunned by their strength. Back to the orc chief. He launches another powerful attack at Xenoph, but Xenoph leaps into the air and lands a strike that splits the orc chief in half. Al is shocked that Xenoph defeated a rank B monster with a single strike without even using a skill. That night, Xenoph speaks with Al and asks, "You're the one who eliminated the goblins, aren't you?" Al can't deny it. Xenoph explains that recently they found many goblin corpses outside the city and didn't know who was killing them. They also noticed that all the slain goblins were missing their magic stones. Xenoph says he saw all the monsters Al summoned during the fight. Al realizes he's been completely exposed and admits the truth. Xenoph tells him that Baron Grenville already knew he had talent, which is why he was given the title the Hunter and allowed to leave the city to hunt. Xenoph asks him not to hide anything from him anymore and requests that if he goes hunting again, he should at least inform him. Al notices that Xenoph's back is covered with scars from countless battles. The next day, Al is shocked by the huge number of experience points he gained after the orc chief's death, 7 times more than the goblins he killed. Later, messengers from the kingdom arrive at the Baron's mansion and deliver Mahai's documents. They inform him, "Your son Mahai fulfilled his duty, but unfortunately he died and has been buried." Everyone present is shocked. The Baron shouts, "How could you allow something like this when you know my son only graduated from the academy 6 months ago?" Mahai's mother collapses in tears from the shock. Al cannot believe it either. He remembers how Mahai asked him to take care of Cecile before leaving. Everyone in the castle is devastated. Prince Grenville tries to comfort his daughter and tells her, "This is a national duty we are all exposed to." But she cries and says, "What's the point of national duty if we all end up dying?" She runs away crying. Later, when Al sits with the head servant, he learns that this isn't the first tragedy in the family. Baron Grenville's father and older brother also died at a young age. Suddenly, they hear screams. They are shocked to discover that Cecile has disappeared, and no one knows where she went. They learn that she escaped through the window of her room. Al immediately runs into the forest, searching for her, hoping that she hasn't been harmed. And here, the summary ends for now. So, the question remains, will Al be able to find Cecile and save her? If you're excited for the rest of the story, don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, don't forget to send blessings upon the prophet in the comments. See you again in a new story. Goodbye.
Escape shattered. Reality twisted, a silent return to the lion's den. But when Cecile vanishes into the shadows of a silent betrayal, Alan unleashes a fury months in the making. A siege against 1,000 monsters begins now. From where are you watching Alan's fight? Tell us your country in the comments. The price of freedom was immediate, crushing exhaustion that buckled her legs far sooner than predicted. As the fatigue consumed her, a horrifying auditory phenomenon began. A voice, seemingly spawned from the depths of her own psyche, echoed with impossible duality, close enough to touch, yet infinitely remote, demanding her return. She reeled, paralyzed by the intrusion. Reality rebelled. The scenery began to blur, to contort, signaling a complete collapse of her perception. Alan, in a moment of stark clarity, spoke of Mahai's overwhelming force, dredging up painful, unhealed defeats. This time, however, the admission was absolute. He owned his failures without the slightest attempt to rationalize them. A breakthrough forged forged in desperation. The pretense was over. With no viable escape route remaining, the only course of action was the dreaded acceptance. They would walk back to the mansion. The journey back is silent, filled with thoughts that neither of them can fully express. Along the way, already visibly exhausted, Cecile asks to be carried, saying that she can no longer continue walking. Without complaining or hesitating, Alan agrees and carries her, moving forward with steady steps. When they arrive at the mansion, her father appears to receive them. He tries to reassure her, explaining that soon the mining of Mythil will finally begin. As soon as the rights are officially handed over to the royal family, a large part of the responsibilities placed on her will be reduced. Upon hearing that, Cecile begins to understand the reason for all that recent urgency and pressure. Everything was part of something bigger. Even so, she makes her decision. She will fulfill her duty as a noble, and she will not run away just as Mahai did. Time then advances. 6 months pass since Mahai's death, and little by little the Granbell family begins to return to its routine. The orc villages, which once represented a constant threat, were eliminated by the knights, bringing a sense of safety that did not exist before. Meanwhile, the settlement focused on Myethil extraction finally begins to take shape, growing day after day. The mining is expected to begin after the summer, and everything seems to be moving toward a period of stability and prosperity. However, not everything is completely resolved. There is still a problem that cannot be ignored, Carmel. Without access to Mythil, the situation on that side remains unstable, and tensions continue to linger. During the preparations, doubts arise. They say that Cecile might not be able to handle a mission of that level. Alan would like to participate, but he is warned that it will not be allowed. Even so, they recognize that long-range magical attacks could be useful. Despite that, Alan decides to go alone. When they arrive at the location, the truth is revealed. The target is a gigantic nest. More than 1,000 Lancer monsters live there, multiplying without stopping. At the center, there is a level B creature, the armored Spear Queen. The problem is the structure. The entrance to the nest is narrow. Invading directly is impossible. If the fight happens inside, it will never end. Then a strategy emerges. Reduce the number of enemies first. The battle begins, but quickly they are surrounded. Even so, they keep advancing. Days pass, and then weeks. Even after an entire month of battle, the nest remains intact. Twice a week, he faces more than 200 enemies per day. In total, thousands have already been defeated, but it does not matter. The bodies disappear. The queen consumes them and generates new enemies. It is an endless cycle. Realizing that, he decides to change strategy. This time, he will not retreat. He remains on site every day. And then finally, something changes. The number of enemies begins to decrease. Now only one thing remains. The queen advancing through the interior of the nest, which looks like a true labyrinth. He uses summons to map the path. It is like controlling multiple fronts at the same time in a constant strategic battle until he finds it, the egg chamber. After 2 months, he finally reaches the objective. The armored Spear Queen is gigantic, much larger than any other monster. Her presence is overwhelming, but he already has a plan. First, he eliminates the smaller enemies. Then, he focuses on her. The battle is intense. The confrontation seems endless, but at the right moment, he finds an opening and orders the final attack. After a difficult fight, the queen is defeated. Exhausted, he realizes that he will not be able to return to the city that same day. Even so, he needs proof. He takes part of the queen's body and also Myethil ore found at the location. When he presents everything, no one believes it. They say it is impossible, that it cannot be true. But then they take a closer look. The ore could not have been obtained by chance. And little by little, the truth is confirmed. The nest exists, and everything happened exactly as it was described. With no more doubts, a decision is made. A 5th vein of ore has been discovered. The knights will be sent immediately, and then comes the recognition. Alan, his performance was impressive. His unauthorized entry will be ignored. And more than that, for discovering a new Mythil deposit, he now receives a huge reward, 30% of the mining rights. Alan becomes confused upon hearing about the mining rights. At first, he does not understand exactly what that means, but soon they explain. With time, he will realize how much profit it can generate. Even without fully understanding, one thing becomes clear. He has achieved something enormous. Time moves forward. With the arrival of October, Alan finally turns 12 years old. Unexpected visitors arrive at the location, breaking the tranquility that had been established. The royal messenger appears once again, but this time his presence carries a different weight. He is not alone. At his side, there is a representative of the influential Carnal family. The mere presence of that name name is enough to make the atmosphere tense. The mood changes immediately, becoming heavy and uncomfortable. After being formally received, the visitors begin by praising the recent success of the mining operations, acknowledging the progress that has been achieved. However, shortly afterward, they reveal the true reason for their visit by presenting an unexpected proposal. The proposal involves the joint management of the so-called three white dragon veins. The idea, at first glance, seems simple and even advantageous. Granbell and Carnell would begin to share both administration and profits, putting a definitive end to the conflicts that have dragged on for years between the two sides. The contract is already completely prepared, with no room for changes. And more than that, it has already been signed by the Carnell family, demonstrating urgency and implicit pressure. Now the final decision rests in Denshaku's hands. However, he does not accept it so easily. The speed with which the proposal appeared immediately raises suspicions. Something does not seem right. Without giving in to the pressure, Denshaku decides that he needs to go to the capital before making any final decision. He wants to understand the full situation, assess the risks, and ensure that there are no hidden traps behind that seemingly advantageous offer. The royal emissary, however, insists. He argues that refusing the proposal could be interpreted as greed, something that might lead to negative political consequences. On the other hand, accepting it without thinking could be even more dangerous. Denshaku makes his position clear and firm. He does not trust anyone easily, especially in situations that involve such great interests. He states that he will not accept anything that could put his family at risk. In his mind, all the hardships faced over the last 100 years are still vivid. An entire century of suffering, losses, and constant struggle. Now that they have finally achieved something valuable, he has no intention of giving it up so easily. The tension in the environment increases with every moment, and it becomes evident to everyone present that any choice made at that moment could bring serious consequences. Even in the face of this impasse, a possible solution begins to emerge. The idea is to wait for the return of the Knight Commander and only then proceed together to the capital to make a safer decision. But before any plan can be put into action, everything changes suddenly. Cecile is attacked. An intruder invades the place without warning, and chaos instantly takes over. Without hesitation, Alan reacts immediately and rushes into combat, trying to contain the threat. In the middle of the confusion, everyone tries to protect Cecile, but the situation quickly spirals out of control. Despite their efforts, they fail. Cecile is captured and taken away right before their eyes. Suddenly, one of the mages throws a smoke bomb that causes Alan to lose consciousness. When he wakes up, he realizes that both of them are tied up. Even in that condition, he knows that a summoner can still fight as long as he can see enough to act. Without wasting time, he summons Chappie and begins to move strategically. Observing the environment around him, he realizes that they are inside some kind of storage area. The place is large, but it is filled with enemies. While staying hidden, he overhears the kidnappers talking among themselves. They analyze Alan, evaluating his abilities. Some comment that he is skilled enough to be sold as a slave, which reveals the true nature of that group. Others show concern, mentioning dangerous names. Among them, Xenoph, the Knight Commander, appears someone known for having faced entire armies alone. At that moment, Alan understands something crucial. He cannot rely on external help. If he wants to survive and save Cecile, he will have to act on his own. As he tries to move more freely, he realizes an even bigger problem. His mithril sword is no longer with him. He probably lost it during the attack. Now he is even more vulnerable. Even so, he does not retreat. As he continues analyzing the environment, something begins to catch his attention. The place is strange, too enclosed, too dark. There is a slight constant swaying in the air. Gradually, the truth reveals itself. They are not on solid ground. They are inside a ship, but not an ordinary ship. It is a magical airship floating above the clouds. The altitude makes any attempt to escape practically impossible. Even so, Alan remains calm and begins to think clearly. The place is large, divided into several areas, including even a restaurant, which indicates that the structure is well organized. Moving silently, he ends up overhearing a decisive conversation, and then the truth comes to light. Everything was planned from the very beginning. Cecile was not captured by chance. She is just a piece in a much bigger game, a hostage used as a tool of pressure. The objective is to force her family to accept the proposed contract. The threat is clear and cruel. If there is any resistance, parts of her body will be sent as a warning. warning. At that moment, something changes inside Alan. His anger explodes uncontrollably. He cannot allow that to happen. Not after everything, not with someone he decided to protect. Without hesitation, he makes a definitive decision. He will end everything right there. Quickly adjusting his strategy, he summons Ajaha and begins his counterattack. Now, there are no more doubts or hesitation. There is only one objective: to rescue Cecile.